It started with an email I almost deleted. I was clearing out my inbox after work, the usual pile of junk, sales, shipping confirmations, store receipts, when I saw it. The subject line read, "You're invited, a night to remember." At first I figured it was spam, but then I noticed the sender's name, Events by Ember. That rang a bell. Elena had mentioned them once, said they handled private parties and high-end gatherings. I clicked. There it was, a formal invitation. Gold and navy design, our local vineyard's name at the top. A private evening event, live jazz, catered dinner, formal attire required. The message ended with, "Hosted by Elena Ellison, celebrating a beautiful milestone with those who matter most." Elena, my wife. But not once had she mentioned this to me. At first, I thought maybe it was a surprise for me. Our anniversary was coming up, not a major one, just 12 years. But maybe she was planning something big, something quiet she hadn't told me about. She's done that before. She always loved elegant gestures, big energy, applause. That was never me, but I supported her in it. Let her have her moments. I checked the date, Saturday, April 15th. That was this weekend. I looked over at the calendar we kept on the fridge. It had her appointments, her hair sessions, her yoga nights, all written in that neat cursive of hers. Nothing on the 15th. She was home by then, upstairs getting ready for bed. I walked up, casually leaned on the doorframe, and asked, "Hey, anything going on this weekend?" She was brushing her hair. What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Just wondering if we've got plans." She smiled in the mirror. "Not that I know of." "Why?" I didn't push it, just nodded. "All right. I might get some work done on the truck Saturday." She gave me a light smile, then turned back to her reflection. That night, I stared at the ceiling long after the lights were out. Something didn't feel right. I showed up at the vineyard around 6:45, just as the sun was starting to dip behind the hills. I wore the gray blazer Elena gave me last Christmas and brought a bottle of her favorite wine. If this was a surprise party for me, I figured I'd play along. Act surprised, give her the moment. The gravel crunch beneath my boots, the glow of string lights, the sound of distant laughter, it was all beautifully done. I nodded to the valet, who took my keys and stepped inside. The event hall had been transformed, candles, floral arrangements, a jazz trio playing soft in the corner. Everyone was dressed to the nines, glasses in hand, laughter bubbling in the air. But as I moved through the crowd, something started to feel off. People glanced at me, but no one greeted me directly. Some smiled politely, the kind of smile you give when you're trying to figure out if someone belongs. I saw a couple I vaguely recognized from Elena's salon clients. They nodded awkwardly and turned away. And then I saw the sign near the entrance table. "A new chapter begins, celebrating Elena and Brandon." Brandon? That was the name of the guy she'd hired as her salon's business manager a year ago. Young, flashy, always wearing tight suits and talking in Instagram captions. I always figured he was just a harmless showpiece, someone to impress clients, fluff up the brand. But there he was, standing beside her. Elena, in a pale blue dress I'd never seen before, holding a champagne glass, smiling like she'd never had a worry in the world. They weren't just hosting the event together. They were standing beneath a floral arch. I didn't need to read the rest of the sign to understand what was happening. This wasn't a business dinner. This wasn't an anniversary party. This was a damn engagement, and I wasn't supposed to be there. I stood frozen, bottle of wine still in hand, until she turned and saw me. Her face went pale. She whispered something to Brandon and quickly walked over, heels clicking on the polished floor. "Mark," she said under her breath, "what are you doing here?" I stared at her. "I got an invitation." Her eyes widened. "You weren't supposed to. You weren't supposed to." That's what she said to me, like I'd crashed someone else's party. Not, "Mark, I can explain." Not, "It's not what it looks like." Just those 4 words, cold, guilty, and exposed. I stood there, still holding the wine bottle like some idiot who brought a gift to his own funeral. Around us, people were starting to notice. I saw eyes darting, whispers starting. It didn't take long before Brandon looked over. His smile faltered. Then he turned away like he didn't know me. I looked back at Elena. "I got the invite by email," I said, keeping my voice low. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around, flustered. "It must have been a mistake. Mark, please, let's not do this here." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "That's funny. You didn't mind doing this here." She touched my arm. "Can we talk outside?" I didn't move. I just looked at her. That dress she was wearing, the blue one, it was new. I'd seen the tag in the trash last week. I'd thought nothing of it. Just another thing she bought for the salon, maybe. But now it all connected. Elena, I said. What is this? She glanced around again. It's complicated. No, I said. It's not. You're throwing an engagement party. You just didn't expect your husband to show up. The word husband hit her hard. Please, she said again. Let's go outside. I finally stepped back, turned toward the door. She followed me out onto the patio where the music was softer, the lights dimmer, and the wind carried the smell of roses and wine. I turned to face her. How long? She crossed her arms. Don't. How long, Elena? She looked down. Almost a year. I nodded slowly. My throat felt dry. I hadn't expected the truth, but somehow hearing it so plainly still hit like a fist. You were going to tell me eventually, I assume? She hesitated. After the business was stable. That was it. That was the part that made something inside me flip. Not after the marriage ended, or after you found peace, or even after I had the guts to face you like a human being. No, after the business was stable. So that was all I ever was to her. Stability. A wallet. A placeholder until her new life was ready for display. You used my name to get that loan, I said. To open your salon. Don't forget that. She shifted. We both benefited. I laughed. I put up the money. I signed the lease. You used a business partner to hide your affair and now you're calling it a clean slate. She bit her lip. Mark, you're being cruel. No, I said, stepping closer. Cruel would be yelling in there, breaking a glass, telling everyone exactly what kind of woman you are. She went quiet. I'm not going to give you that, I said. You don't get the satisfaction of playing the victim. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for her image, for the crack in the mirror she'd spent a year polishing. You're leaving? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Right now. She looked down. You could have just not come. You could have just invited me, as your husband, instead of hoping I wouldn't find out. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her. You just didn't want to deal with what it looked like. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't slam the door, didn't yell, didn't look back, just handed the wine bottle to the valet and said, Wrong party. He didn't ask. He'd probably seen it before. By the time I got to my truck, my hands were steady again. My mind wasn't racing anymore. I wasn't confused. I was awake. Everything in me that used to ache to fix things, to understand her, to hold on, it was gone. She made her choice, and I was about to make mine. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. I sat in the garage with a beer in my hand and the shop radio on low, not really listening, just needing the noise. The old Mustang I'd been working on for the past 3 years sat under a canvas tarp in the corner. I thought about starting it up, taking a drive, but I didn't. I just stared at the cracked floor and let the truth settle into my bones. She wasn't sorry. She was only sorry she got caught. That was the real pain. Not the fact that she cheated, though God knows that stung, but the fact that she planned it, built it, had the nerve to stand under string lights and toast champagne to a future with someone else, while my name was still on the mortgage, the loan, the equipment that made her salon possible. I didn't get angry. I got quiet. I went inside around 4 a.m. and opened the old filing cabinet in our shared office, the one she never touched, the one where I kept everything. Elena always made fun of my habit of printing copies of things, leases, contracts, receipts. You're a digital dinosaur, she'd say with a laugh. I'd just smile and keep organizing. Turns out, being a dinosaur paid off. I found the original lease for the salon's location. I found the bank transfer slips, every one of the personal loans I took from my name to finance her equipment. And I found what I'd almost forgotten about, the partnership agreement, filed through a holding company I created years ago when I helped a buddy set up his business. She never read the paperwork. She just signed where I told her, and that was her first mistake. According to the documents, notarized, filed, and clean, I owned 49% of her business, not as Mark Ellison, but through a company called E2M Solutions LLC. She thought it was an outside investor. She bragged about it to her friends, told them how smart she was for securing outside funding without giving up control. Only she did. She gave up just enough, and now I had leverage. Later that day, I met with Ryan, my old high school friend turned corporate attorney. We weren't close, but we'd stayed in touch over the years. I showed him the papers, laid out everything, the party, the affair, the business ties. He took it all in without a blink. Mark, he said, you've got her. I don't want a war. I told him, I just want out. But I'm not walking away empty. You won't, he said. We'll file for a forensic audit. You have legal standing to demand access to the books. If there's any misuse of business funds, and I'd bet money there is, you're entitled to damages. Minimum? You could claim half the business assets, maybe more, depending on how it shakes out. I nodded. He leaned forward. You want to take it all? No, I said. I want her to feel it. Back at home, I walked into the kitchen. The place still smelled like her. Lavender soap, espresso, overpriced candles. She wasn't there. She was probably still riding the high of her perfect party. I didn't call her, didn't ask where she was. Instead, I opened a drawer and found the spare salon keys she left behind. Then I drove down there. The salon was quiet, closed for the weekend. I unlocked the back door and walked in. The polished floors, the gold-accented mirrors, the glass coffee table with fashion magazines perfectly fanned out. All of it paid for by me. I stood in the center of the space and looked around. It was spotless, pristine, but it wasn't hers, not anymore. I walked back out and locked the door behind me. Back home, I poured a glass of water and sat at the table. The silence didn't bother me now. In fact, it was the first time in years it felt like peace. She could have had all of this, the life we built, the stability, the trust, but she wanted flash, applause, attention. She'd built something flashy. Now I was going to flip the lights on. She came home late the next evening. I was in the garage, polishing tools I didn't need to use. The kind of work that keeps your hands busy while your head stays sharp. I heard the car pull into the driveway. Slow, careful, like she wasn't sure she wanted to be seen. When the door opened, she didn't call out. Just set her purse on the counter, slipped her heels off, and walked into the kitchen. I waited a minute, then stepped inside. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, she said, trying to steady her voice. You're home. I didn't answer. She smoothed her hair, forcing a smile. I figured you'd be at Luke's or something. I wasn't sure when we'd talk. You didn't text. You didn't call. I thought maybe you needed space, she said softly. I nodded. That's convenient. She pulled out a chair and sat, folding her hands. Mark, I know how this looks. I raised an eyebrow. You do? Yes. And I don't blame you for being upset. I should have handled it differently. But, no, I interrupted. You should have handled it honestly. She blinked. That's fair. I showed up to a party where people toasted to you and Brandon like I didn't exist. You were wearing a ring before the ink on our marriage license dried. It's not like that, she said quickly. We're not legally engaged. It was just a symbolic thing. So the ring's fake? I asked. She hesitated. It's real, but it's not official. I sat down across from her. She looked away, suddenly fascinated by her own fingers. I know what you've been doing, Elena. I'm not proud of it, she said. I'm not here for apologies, I said flatly. She looked up. Then why are you here? I slid a thin folder across the table. She stared at it, confused. Then she opened it. First page, the salon lease, signed by both of us. Second page, transfer of startup funds from my personal savings. Third page, the corporate structure, showing E2M Solutions LLC as 49% partner. She flipped through the pages, eyes moving faster now, breathing shallower. What is this? She whispered. It's what I own, I said. In that beautiful little business you built with my money. She swallowed. This isn't, Mark. I thought E2M was an outside investor. It was, I said. Me. Through a legal shell. When you signed off on without reading. You tricked me? No, I said calmly. I protected myself. She pushed the folder back. So what now? You're going to take the salon from me? I leaned back. No. I'm going to file a claim, quietly, legally, through Ryan. Ryan Moore? I nodded. Her lips tightened. You're serious. I'm filing for an audit, I continued. If there's any misuse of funds, if you've been compensating Brandon off the books or drawing income while telling the IRS something else. I haven't, she snapped. Everything is clean. Then you have nothing to worry about, I said. She stood up, pacing now. You're going to ruin everything I built. No, I said. You did that. She turned on me. This is revenge. This is consequence, I replied. She stopped moving. I gave you everything, I said. Time, trust, money. You could have come to me, told the truth, ended it right. But instead you lied. You planned a new life with someone else while mine was still running, and you thought I'd just disappear. She didn't argue. Not anymore. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes dropped to the folder again. I stood up. First hearings in 2 weeks, I said. You'll be served papers by Friday. Mark, I looked at her. You made a guest list for your new life. I wasn't on it. She opened her mouth. I was already walking away. The first notice went out on Wednesday. I didn't tell her when. Didn't give her a warning. I let the paperwork speak for me. Official, stamped, and delivered right to the salon, addressed not to Mrs. Elena Ellison, but to the name she used on all her branding, Elena Grace. Because her new life didn't have room for my last name, until it came time to use it for loans. I knew the moment it landed. She called twice. I didn't answer either time. Around noon, I got a message from Ryan. Received. Audit request submitted. Business account flagged for review. Give it a few days, her reality's about to shift. I simply wrote back, thank you. That afternoon I went to work like it was any other day. Oil changes, brakes, invoices. The guys at the shop didn't know anything had changed. Maybe that was the best part, to move through the day like a man who'd already won. Because in some ways I had. She tried to erase me, to rewrite the story, but she forgot who built the first chapter. The next day, I stopped by Luke's bar after closing the shop. He slid me a beer without a word, like he knew I needed it. You look better than I expected, he said. I feel better than I should, I admitted. She call you? 3 times. He let out a low whistle. She's probably panicking. She should be. He nodded. What's your endgame? I took a sip. I don't want the salon. I don't want to run it. I don't want her money. Then what? I want her to explain it. In court. On record. With the books open and the lights on. Luke raised his glass. That's colder than I expected from you. Yeah, I said. That's what happens when someone throws a party to celebrate your replacement. He didn't argue. 2 days later, I pulled up to the salon just before sunset. Not to cause trouble. I didn't even go inside. I just sat in the truck across the street and watched. Inside, I saw her pacing, phone in hand, snapping at someone. Probably Brandon. Probably the accountant. Maybe her lawyer, if she had one yet. There were fewer cars in the parking lot than usual. Fewer clients going in. I knew some of the women she catered to. Small town circles overlap. Word spreads. Nobody wants to get their hair done by the woman whose husband is dragging her into court for fraud. I didn't stay long. Just long enough to see her face in the window. That tight, forced smile as a client walked out. Then I left. Let her feel it. Let her wonder if I'd show up again. Friday morning, she came to the house. I opened the door and didn't invite her in. She stood there in a dark coat, no makeup, eyes a little red. The version of Elena the world didn't usually get to see. I need to talk, she said quietly. I bet you do. She glanced past me, into the house. Can I come in? No, I said. That stung her more than I expected, but she stayed on the porch. I got the papers, she said. I don't understand why you're doing this. I looked at her. You really don't? I didn't think it would go this far. You didn't think at all. She shifted her weight. I didn't hurt you on purpose, Mark. That's the thing, I said. You didn't care if it hurt me or not. She flinched. I could have gone public, I said. I could have humiliated you the way you did me. Isn't that what this is? She snapped. No. This is the truth, with consequences. She was silent for a long moment. What do you want? She asked finally. I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door behind me. I want you to stand in front of a judge and explain how the man you left off your guest list owned half your business the whole time. Her voice shook. You'll ruin me. No, I said. You did that. And then I walked past her, down the steps, and got in my truck. I didn't need to see her reaction. I'd already seen enough. By the next week, things were unraveling fast, not for me, but for her. I didn't go looking for updates. I didn't need to. Small towns talk. It started with a message from Danielle, one of my cousin's friends who used to go to Elena's salon. Just a short text. Guess I'll be finding a new stylist. Whole place feels radioactive now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. 2 days later, I overheard 2 women at the coffee shop, both regulars of Elena's, whispering about cancelled appointments. One said she'd shown up and found the front desk empty. Another said she saw Brandon arguing in the parking lot with someone on the phone, waving his arms like he was about to explode. I just stirred my coffee and pretended not to hear. That Friday, Luke sent me a screenshot from the salon's Instagram page, the comments under Elena's latest post, a recycled photo of some hair product, and a generic, "We love our clients," caption, had gone sideways. Wow. Maybe start with loving your husband, not booking here again. Shady. Your business partner still around, or is that done too? And then, silence. No new posts. No replies. The page went dark within hours. That's when I knew Brandon had bailed. The thing about guys like him, slick, flashy, all charm and no anchor, is that they only stay when things are shiny. When the pictures are good, the wine flows, the ego gets fed. But the moment things get complicated, they disappear. Elena had traded steady for spectacle. Now spectacle had left her with nothing but an empty chair and bills with my name on them. Monday morning, I got a call from Ryan. She tried to move money, he said. Personal to business. Backdated the memo line. Bank flagged it. She panicking? Like a drowning swimmer grabbing anything she can. You want to keep pressing? Yes, I said. All the way. She's not going to recover from this. That's the point. That night I saw her again. Not planned. I was leaving the hardware store and she was in the parking lot, standing beside her car, staring at her phone like she expected it to apologize. She saw me. I kept walking, but she stepped in front of me. Mark, I stopped. Waited. You really hate me this much? I looked her over, not with anger, just clarity. She looked tired, not done up, not ready for Instagram, just worn down. No, I said. I don't hate you. I just stopped protecting you. She flinched. You're destroying what I worked for. You used me to build it, I said. You handed someone else the keys and figured I'd still mow the lawn. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know it would fall apart this fast. That's because you never built it right. She took a shaky breath. Brandon's gone. I know. He said this was too messy. That I lied to him too. You did, I said. To both of us. She was quiet, swallowed hard, looked down. Do you think they'll come back? She asked. The clients. The trust. I don't know, I said honestly. That's not my problem anymore. Her voice dropped. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a plan. This is your plan. You just didn't plan for me. She looked up again, desperate now. And if I tried to fix it? I stepped past her. You can't fix something that was never yours to begin with. Back at home, I poured a drink and sat on the porch. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Not because I'd won, this wasn't a game, but because I'd done what most men don't. I didn't fall apart. I didn't lash out. I waited. I listened. I acted. She wrote me out of the guest list of her future. And now, she's the one standing outside the door. 3 weeks after the party, Elena showed up at my house again. This time she didn't look polished. No makeup, no jewelry. Just an oversized sweater and jeans that didn't look like they'd been worn in public in years. She was holding something in her hand, a small manila envelope. She looked smaller somehow, like life had been pressing down on her shoulders since the last time we spoke. I opened the door and didn't say a word. She didn't ask to come in. I just wanted to give you this, she said, holding the envelope out. Financials, the books, everything. It's clean, I swear. I never tried to cheat you. Not with money. I took the envelope, tucked it under my arm. You sure didn't mind cheating everywhere else. She winced. I know. We stood there in silence for a few seconds. You could have burned me publicly, she said quietly. Put me on blast. You didn't. Why? Because I didn't need to, I said. You burned yourself. All I did was hold the match while you looked in the mirror. She nodded like she'd been waiting for that answer, like she knew it was true. Elena, why did you do it? I asked. Not because I needed the explanation. I didn't, but because I wanted to hear if she'd finally say it out loud. I don't know, she said, shaking her head. Maybe I got bored. Maybe I liked feeling wanted again. Brandon made everything feel exciting, like I was 25 again. And I didn't? She looked at me, eyes rimmed red. You were stable, steady, kind, but you didn't see me. No, I said. I saw you. I just didn't see the version of you that was pretending. She pressed her lips together, held back a tear. I didn't plan for it to go this far. Yeah, I said. You already told me that. Right after the invitations went out to everyone but me. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. That night, the party. I swear I didn't mean for you to find out that way. You mean you hoped I wouldn't? I corrected. You wanted me gone before you revealed your new life. You didn't want a clean break, Elena. You wanted a quiet one. She didn't argue. Now you're here, hoping for what? I asked. She swallowed. Some kind of mercy. Mercy? I repeated. I lost a business, Mark, she said. My name's mud in town. Clients won't come back. Brandon left. My parents won't even look me in the eye. I've got nothing. That's not true, I said. You've still got the choices you made. You get to keep every single one of those. Tears ran down her cheeks now. Silent ones. You built a life with someone else, I said, while using the life I gave you to pay for it. She wiped her eyes. I was stupid. You were dishonest. That's worse. She looked up again. Do you hate me? No, I said. I don't waste hate on people who don't matter anymore. She stood there, nodding like she deserved every word. I looked at the envelope again, then back at her. I'll hand this off to Ryan. If it checks out, we'll finish this quietly. But make no mistake, I'm not doing it for you. I understand, she whispered. Good, I said. Because the version of me you thought would sit quietly and watch this all happen, that man's gone. You buried him with your guest list. She finally turned to leave, but paused on the steps. For what it's worth, I did love you. I nodded once. You just loved yourself more. She left after that. No hug, no one last plea. Just silence and gravel crunching under her tires as she drove off, not to a home, not to a partner, not to applause, just alone. By the time the audit cleared, there was nothing left for her to hide. Ryan called me on a Thursday afternoon. It's done, he said. No fraud, no embezzlement, but she definitely blurred some lines. You're entitled to 49% of all net assets based on the original valuation, and since the business is no longer operating, we'll proceed with liquidation. I didn't say much, just nodded to myself and asked, how long will it take? 2 weeks, maybe less. She'll get her cut, you'll get yours, and then she'll get a letter saying she's no longer part of E2MS Active Partnerships. Clean break. Good, I said. She hasn't contested a thing, he added. She knows she'd lose, I replied. There's nothing left to defend. He paused. You sure you don't want to go after her personally? I'm sure, I said. I don't want a trophy. I want my peace. And that's what I was finally getting. That weekend, I drove out to the place where the party had happened, the vineyard she rented for her engagement celebration. It was empty now. No guests, no music, just rows of bare vines and a few rustling leaves in the wind. I stood in the same spot where I'd watched her clink glasses with Brandon, where I stood holding a wine bottle meant for a celebration that never belonged to me. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel sadness anymore. I just felt done. The next morning, I walked into Ryan's office to sign the final settlement papers. Simple, straightforward. 1 stack for me, 1 for her. My share of the business, sold. Account closed. Partnership dissolved. When I left the building, I took a deep breath and felt something I hadn't in a long time. Lightness. Elena reached out one last time. I didn't answer the first 2 texts. The third came 3 days later. I just want to meet. One last time. Please. I didn't owe her that, but I said yes anyway. We met at a diner on the edge of town. Neutral ground, cheap coffee, no wine glasses, no music, no curated aesthetic. Just 2 people in worn-out clothes and whatever truth they still had left between them. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner booth, nursing a cup that had probably gone cold. When I sat down, she smiled a little. You look different, she said. I nodded. I feel different. She folded her hands. I wanted to say thank you. For what? For not humiliating me in public. For not blowing it all up. You could have, and part of me thought you would. I thought about it, I said. But then I realized I didn't need revenge. I just needed to be done. She looked down. I deserved worse. You got exactly what you earned. She nodded, slow and quiet. I lost everything. No, I said. You still have your name, your car, a chance to rebuild. That's more than most people get. And you? I've got peace. A clean record. A lesson that cost me less than it could have. She went quiet. The waitress poured her a refill. She didn't touch it. I don't think I'll ever be able to explain what I was thinking, she said. It just felt so easy, slipping away from what we had. I told myself you didn't see me, that we'd grown apart. I leaned forward slightly. I saw you, I said. You just didn't like what I saw, because it didn't fit the story you were trying to live. She looked like she wanted to argue, but couldn't, so I stood. That's all I needed, I said. The final word. Mark, she said. I looked at her one last time. You had your party, you made your guest list, and I wasn't on it. Then I walked out, and this time, I didn't look back. You don't always need to ruin someone publicly. Sometimes you just let the truth walk ahead of them. That's what happened to Elena. The story of what she did, it never made headlines. There was no viral post, no shouting match in a parking lot. Just whispers, quiet ones, the kind that spread faster than fire and cut deeper than gossip. She tried reopening the salon under a new name, changed the logo, swapped the colors, even tried to advertise it as under new vision. But the town wasn't buying it, not the brand, and definitely not her. People remembered. They remembered the man who helped build that place from the ground up, and how he found out he'd been written out of his own life at a party he was never supposed to attend. No one said it directly to her face. They didn't have to. The appointment book stayed half empty. The vendors she'd worked with for years started ignoring her calls. 2 of her top stylists left without notice, saying they needed a change. Brandon? He vanished the night after I walked out of that party. And according to what I heard from a friend in Santa Fe, he'd already moved on. New town, new woman, same recycled charm. She tried reaching out to him. He blocked her number. She was never his future, just a stepping stone. That truth stung more than the lawsuit ever could. Meanwhile, I kept living. Not like some triumphant man on a mountain, just steady, clear, simple. I kept the house, sold her SUV, put the extra room in the garage to better use, cleaned it out, turned it into a workspace for side projects. Nothing dramatic, just mine. People in town didn't treat me like a victim. They didn't pat me on the back or whisper, "Poor guy." They just nodded when they saw me. A few offered quiet phrases. "Heard what happened. You handled it with class. Some men break down. You stood tall." She played herself. I didn't gloat. Didn't need to. Because every time someone said her name, it was with a wince, a shift in tone, a short silence that said more than words could. She tried to relaunch her social media presence, posted photos of coffee, books, new products, tried to reinvent herself as some kind of healing energy influencer. Comments were turned off after 2 days. I think she finally got tired of pretending. She stopped posting altogether. I saw her once more, from a distance. She was at the grocery store, wearing sunglasses and moving quickly through the aisles like someone trying not to be recognized. We locked eyes for a brief second. She didn't smile, didn't wave. Neither did I. She looked like someone who finally understood what it meant to be left off the list. She had no one to call, no one to impress, no hand to hold, because all the applause she thought she needed, it died the moment people saw who she really was without me standing behind her. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from her lawyer. No drama, no threats, just a quiet, final signature confirming the full separation of business, assets, and name. She wasn't contesting anything. Just closing the chapter. I didn't even frame it. Just filed it away with the rest of the paperwork, and poured myself a drink. Sometimes justice doesn't come with noise. It comes when the person who thought they could outsmart you finally runs out of places to hide. And when the people they thought would always clap for them, stop showing up.